everyone, welcome back to the Library of Parthos. My name is Sarah. I am starting this over because I realized as I was rambling that I did not have my microphone attached to the camera, so it would have not sounded great. But anyway, this is my first time filming with my new spooky season background. I'm so excited about it. I'm already noticing though that Mr. Poe is completely hidden behind me, so that might have to be a change that I make. I might have to stick him somewhere else. But I am so excited to now have a background to film by that matches the books I'm reading and the mood I'm in, and I think it's just perfect. Once I actually decorate for fall, which I haven't done yet, I'm just sneaking little pumpkins in here and there. I will have a couple other little pumpkins that I can kind of throw in some of this empty space, so it will change and evolve throughout the season. You can play a little can you spot the difference between the videos? But I think there will be one more video in between that has my old setup because I had things filmed and ready in advance and then decided to make the shift. So there might be 1 week where it kind of switches back and then we're back in this until Christmas. So anyway, let's get into the book we're talking about today, and you'll be so proud of me. This is a book off of my TBR for August. At this point in time, I have read 2 of my 4 books on my TBR, which is quite a feat, and I am so proud that I was able to do that. I'm not gonna lie, a lot of it was because I was traveling and I was on a plane and I was like, what else am I gonna do? And but they were both excellent books and I'm so excited to talk about them. So let's go ahead and get into the first one, and that is Forestfall by Lyndall Clipstone. This is the sequel to the book Lakesedge. I do have a review of that I will link in the video and also in the description box below. Definitely check that out before reading the second book, of course, because there is a lot of context that is built and there are some important character developments and elements of the plot that are necessary to understand this book. But I will give a very quick overview of the first book so that you can kind of understand what's going on in this one. This might be a rare case, I'm just gonna set the stage, where the sequel was better than the first book. But we'll talk about that when I share my final thoughts. So let's go ahead and get into it. I'm going to do a quick overview of book 1, a spoiler-free summary, and then we'll get into spoilers and all of the juicy details and how I was so mad for a very brief period of time. Okay, so in the first book, Lakesedge, we meet Violetta Graceling. She's our main female character in the story. She and her brother are living with their adopted mother, and she doesn't treat them very well, mostly because her brother Arian has some dark magic that she does not like as a very religious woman. So whenever they are all gathering together in the town to pay tithe to the lord of the land, he kind of clocks that this kid has some magic and says, hey, come away with me to Lakesedge. Both of you can come and it'll be a much better life than you have here living in your tiny cottage with your abusive mother. When they arrive at Lakesedge, they realize that the whole purpose of their presence there is because it's cursed. So there is this corruption. There's this corruption that has taken over the land. Everything is dead and decaying and dying. And Rowan Sylvanan, I think is his last name, the lord of that section of land, is kind of poisoned by the corruption, and the only way that they can kind of keep it at bay is a blood tithe every couple of weeks or months or so. However, it's taking a toll on him and he is slowly becoming less and less human. So he is hoping that Arian's power, which is similar to his kind of, will be enough to stop the corruption. So throughout the book, they are trying everything they can to figure this out. Rowan and Violetta become quite close, and she kind of calls on this weird connection that she has with the Lord Under and makes bargains and uses her own very small amount of magic to kind of cure the land of its corruption. When she makes the final bargain, you know, there's a twist of words, there's a difference in meaning, and essentially she says, I won't die and I'll go home, and the Lord Under means you won't die, but you'll come to below where I live and I'll make you a home there. So that is where the book ends. Now we're getting to the second book, and in the second book, Rowan and Violetta still have a connection even though he is above and she is below in the land of the dead. So throughout the story, they are using this connection to try to figure out a way to get Violetta back home. All the while, she is learning about these gods that are ruling the land below and her kind of place in that world. Yeah, so that's it. Spoiler free. So let's go ahead and get into the plot with spoilers. Again, if you've not read the first book and you don't want it to be ruined, skip to the end of the video. Or if you just prefer that you don't ever get spoilers ever, feel free to skip to the end of the video as well. So getting into a spoiled plot of the book Forestfall. As I said in my spoiler-free summary, Violetta is now below. She lives in this little cute, like, earthen cottage that the Lord Under has created for her, and Rowan is still back at Lake's Edge. The corruption is gone, but they still feel this connection between them. They describe it as a thread. So the way the magic kind of works in the book, they're like alchemists, so they draw sigils and symbols to work magic. And so they had drawn these symbols on their wrist, and that is where they kind of feel that connection between each other, even though Violetta is seemingly dead and Rowan is still very much alive. Now, to kind of provide some background that is very important, when Violetta was younger, her parents were killed and her brother almost died. However, a strange man kind of carried him through the woods and was like, hey, do you want your brother to live? And she was like, of course I do. And he was like, fine, what do you want to trade? And she was like, I'll trade my magic with you. He was like, all right, cool. I'll take your magic. You don't have it anymore. And your brother's totally fine. And he does have magic. And that was the Lord Under. So Violetta and the Lord Under have this like weird connection that goes back many, many years, which is why she was kind of able to call on him to help get rid of the corruption, which is also why she was able to see him when other people couldn't, and why he was kind of willing to make these bargains. Also, the corruption was a mistake. It wasn't something that he intended to do. So he needed it gone as well because it was affecting the world below as well as the world above. So he really needed that taken care of. And Violetta was like, I volunteer as tribute. I will take care of it. And then we'll figure out the rest from there. So far at the start of the book, she has bargained away her magic. She has traded all memories of her family. She has traded away the ability to be with her family whenever she dies. So she will not be, they're kind of like put into trees. She will not be placed in a tree near her family. She'll be by herself. And now she has traded away her ability to live in the world above with the man she loves. She is now stuck below. So as I'm sure you can imagine, she's not really thrilled about that prospect and feels very much a prisoner. So the Lord Under, of course, tells her, you're not a prisoner. You know, I'm doing all of this to protect you. You don't know what's out there. And she's like, fine, show me so I know, like, what I need to be careful around. So we have a lot of back and forth between them where she's kind of trying to push the limits. She'll escape. He'll have to come save her. She'll come back. And he'll be like, don't go anywhere. And she's like, okay. And then she leaves again. And she's not a very good listener. And so that's kind of what's going on in the world below. In the world above, Rowan and Clover, another alchemist, and Arian, Violetta's brother, are trying to kind of recreate these different rituals that they did to try to heal the corruption in the hopes that they will be able to make a connection with Violetta, find out where she is, and a way to get her back. As this is all happening, Violetta and Rowan kind of get these stolen moments almost where they're either dreaming or they're in like a trance from the ritual that they're doing, and they'll get these very brief moments together and then it kind of slips away like a dream. So they're aware that there's a way for them to be in contact with each other. It's just, how do we actually find each other and like physically stay in the same place for more than like 30 seconds? As Violetta is exploring the world below, she meets some other creatures that she did not expect to meet. She meets Lady Fawn, Lady Owl, and Lady Moth, who are all siblings of the Lord Under. So he, much like in the world above, how there's like a lord who is kind of the ruler over a specific section of land, the world below became too much for one person to care for all of the souls and making sure that they got where they needed to go. So the mother, I don't know if she has, I feel like there's another part of her title, but the mother, the lady mother, made these other goddesses essentially to help kind of keep the world below in balance. So they are all siblings of the Lord Under. Absolutely love the descriptions on them. They're kind of like, they're not human, but they appear human, but they're like glitches in their appearance where their eyes are too big or they have multiple eyes and like really sharp teeth. I really loved the description of those characters, and even the Lord Under too, who again appears very human. There are times where like his mask slips and you can kind of see like the monster underneath. So I really loved those descriptions throughout the story. So while they're trying to find a way back to each other, Violetta starts to have some complex feelings where she still loves Rowan and wants to be with him, but she's also kind of spending a lot of time with the Lord Under. You know, they have this long history where he saved her brother when she was a kid, and she's starting to get some very complicated feelings about him. And I think he's starting to get some very complicated feelings about her. And it was at this point in the story where I was like, I don't know who to root for here. Like, honestly, it could go either way and I'd be okay with the ending. Like, I want her to end up with Rowan, but I love a bad boy and the Lord Under's here and things are, you know, heating up a little bit, and I'm not really sure which direction I want the author to take this. So I was kind of on the edge of my seat the whole time because I didn't know what to expect or what I wanted out of it. I really didn't know. So kind of getting to the end of the story-ish, Violetta hears conflicting things. So we'll call them the ladies, Moth, Fawn, and Owl, are like, hey, we can get you out of here. We just need you to take down our brother. And the Lord Under is like, hey, let me share my power with you, and we're going to take down my sisters, and then everything's going to be great. So Violetta gets a share of the Lord Under's power. And while all of this is happening and she's kind of being offered these different schemes with varying outcomes, she's also scheming herself that the more power she has, the stronger her connection with Rowan and the better her chances that she can go home, or at least be able to spend more time with him and figure out a plan from there. So she takes half of the Lord Under's power and essentially becomes this goddess, which is just wild. And so Rowan and his crew figure out that she's kind of become this other being, right? She's become this goddess. And what do we do here in this world to gods and goddesses? We make idols of them and like give and like pay tribute. So if we want to contact Violetta, who's now a goddess, stands to reason that we should create an idol and pay tribute to her. And so that is what ends up kind of like bringing her into like a solid form where she can get to the world above and be with them. So, and she also kind of like sneaks out while the Lord Under is up there, kind of ferrying souls back to the world below. She just kind of like sneaks up the steps. So what happens is Lady Moth is like, this is not okay. You're messing with the balance of our world by bringing a human here. She is not meant to be here. She is meant to be dead, and it is messing everything up. So you either need to finish it, return her, or give all the power to me, because I'm gonna do this the right way. And so again, they're each trying to get Violetta on their side. Violetta, with her newfound power, knows the true names of Lady Fawn, Owl, and Moth, so she's basically able to control them. And then she tries to figure out how she can control the Lord Under, because he doesn't have a name, so she gives him a name. And then she can control him. Like, what a crazy thought. It was so cool. So she basically puts a bunch of daggers in him, traps him in a tree, and then runs away to Rowan. And but the connection's kind of unstable. He's still alive. He's still able to draw on his power. So they all end up in the world below. And the ladies, again, trying to throw their hat in the ring and kind of get control, they bring back Rowan's dead younger brother, Elan? E-L-A-N. Elan? We're going to go with Elan. So then they're kind of like, you know, if you want him, you have to do this, or he's going to die again and go back inside the tree that he was in. So Violetta, again, using her power, is able to control everything. They kind of figure out a plan, and she goes back to the Lord Under with Rowan this time and says, you know, like, I don't want to kill you, but that's what it's going to take for me to be free. I don't want this power. I just wanted it to be able to go home. And then what they end up coming up with, which I think is an interesting ending, is they strike a new bargain. So all of their previous trades have now been rescinded. So she gets the memories of her family back. She gets to be with them when she dies. She gets to go home to the world above. And kind of in return, they just are going to like honor and pay homage to the Lord Under so that his power can stay intact. Everyone gets their happily ever after. Rowan's brother is back. He's got his dream girl. Everyone is happy and healthy, and they are just doing their part to keep the Lord Under in power as much as they can, and that's the end of the story. So to wrap it up, I enjoyed this book much more than I did the first book. I really liked the world that was created in the first book. The Lord Under parts were probably the best part of the story. And the romance I enjoyed, though it's not one that I like think about frequently. You know, it was like, oh yeah, that was fine. This book I thought was so much better because we have this established world at Lake's Edge and these characters, but then we also get to see the world below, which is just very beautifully crafted by the author. The description make it sound very dreamy. We have these very interesting otherworldly creatures that she introduces, and the dynamic between Violetta and Roman trying to, you know, make sure that their bond stays intact and to get her home. And then also Violetta's very complex relationship with the Lord Under, I thought made for a very interesting story. As I said previously, there was a point in the book where I didn't know which way it was going to go, and I would have been fine with her ending up with the Lord Under or Rowan. But I just couldn't see it. It's not like a Tamlin situation, right? There's not a third book where she and the Lord Under get their happily ever after and Rowan's just now a jerk and out of the picture. I couldn't see a way for her to just throw Rowan aside. I didn't think that that was going to happen. So I think the author did a great job of kind of turning things. So the Lord Under is also developing these complex feelings for Violetta, and there comes a point where his language changes. So he kind of goes from saying, I need you, to I need your fear and I need your despair because that makes me stronger. So there's a shift in the wording, and that's when Violetta is like, so none of the things that I was feeling, none of the things that you were feeling were actually real. And so that's how she kind of switches things around and puts the focus back on Violetta and Rowan. So this was such a good book. I think it's definitely worth reading both of them. Again, Forestfall for me was the better of the two books, but of course the first one is necessary to build that context, and it's still a really good story. I did enjoy it a lot, but highly recommend if you've read either of these books, let's talk, because I have so many other thoughts to share, and I really love talking about this story. But that is it for today. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys soon. Bye.